Hey, welcome to Write More or Late. My name is Sarah. I'm with the Midwest Writing Center, and you are watching a web series in which once a week I will give you some kind of itty-bitty lesson on something writing, and once a week I will interview somebody doing something awesome in the arts. You are fortunate that today is an interview day. At the end of the interview, we will leave you with a prompt to do on your own. Today, I am hanging out with Nathan McDowell, a first-generation American poet living in Columbus, Ohio, where he organizes poetic events under the name Village Poetry. His work can be found in Bicoastal Review, Spark to Flame Journal, the Tightwires Anthology, and Nude Bruce Review. I want to add, he placed in the Iron Pen contest this year in poetry. And you can see him in our National Poetry Month celebration lineup. And also, what a QC native. Thanks for hanging out today, Nathan.
Yeah, yeah, I'm so happy to be here, Sarah. Thanks for inviting me.
I've been well, I've been wanting to do this with you for some time. I feel like like I have like a parasocial relationship with you because I just like follow your work and follow
Yeah.
your work. I'm saying like in my head when I said work the first time I meant writing, but it's also like the work. Um
Right.
so I'm really excited to I don't know, get to know you better, bring your work to light in a new space maybe. Um
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with what I like to just keep as my first question and just it used to be the hardest question and I changed the language just a little bit so that it's a little kinder. How did you come to writing? The original question is why do you write? And that's evil. How did you come to writing?
Yeah. Well, they're both going to be long answers, but this will be a relatively shorter one, I think, I came to writing and I've been trying to think of like where I would really place this, but like ever since I was a kid, I really was one of those people where literature was really valued in our house. My dad's an English professor. My mom was just an avid book reader. And so I was always like writing stories as a kid. And then like around 12 or so, I started getting really into poetry. And what that meant is I was a little 12-year-old kid, like trying to write like Keats. I got obsessed with Keats at a really young age. And
That's a
then,
really, really fun surprise for a 12-year-old, I think. I mean, for
isn't
me,
that funny?
I'm surprised in a fun way about the 12-year-old.
It both makes like perfect sense to me, but I also have to remind myself it's kind of insane to like imagine a little 12-year-old kid being like, I'm going to write odes. Um, but I think that was kind of the start. And then, I've been thinking about you guys, about you and Ryan and just the Midwest Writing Center in general, because I do think that some of that programming for kids, I was so insecure that I think I could have become really ashamed of writing and tried to like find an identity outside of it. And having that programming, I was like, oh, like writing is cool. And also it's something adults, like cool adults do, So that was a big part of it.
I'm really glad to hear that. I think that's, I don't know. It's certainly resonant, but I feel like it's a pretty universal thing where whatever it is that you're into at, I don't know, as a teen or a preteen, like it's embarrassing for no reason. But with
Exactly.
writing, it is so often emotionally attached to you that like something that's embarrassing, when you add vulnerability to it, it's over.
That's
Um,
such a good point. Yeah. Yeah.
but with the youth programming in particular, like you have people around you who are also doing the thing, so you're not the weirdo.
Right. Yeah. And like outside of my family, like obviously, like I don't want to overstate this. I knew people who read and but I didn't know many people who wrote really, especially at that age. And so it did help so much to know that it wasn't quite as lonely as I thought. I wasn't the only, even if I was a weirdo, I wasn't the only one.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's super important. I think that like community can make anything.
Hmm.
And I will definitely bring that up again.
I feel like that'll end up being that's a big part of what I would, yeah, my story, I think. So we'll come
Uh,
back.
no, no, okay. So then what? After, we'll say after high school, what happened? Just to your life, I guess.
Yeah, what is
Not with it,
the
not
whole,
for it.
Um, so I went to college at Augustana. This is a Quad Cities based space, right? And so I went there and that was really great. Again, just sort of broadening that horizon. I was like a little bit less lonely. Not only did I meet more people who just loved poetry, but I worked on the literary magazine there all 4 years.
Saga?
And so yeah, exactly. I worked on Saga. Um, and that was really special, and I like got to go to that's still like the first and frankly at the moment the only time I've been to AWP was thanks to Saga and thanks to Augustana. And but then after that, I went through sort of like a lower point, right? And it was both just because like I think I lost some of these easier touchstones to community around writing, but also because I was going through a lot of grief. Like that was my mom passed like right before I graduated, I guess. So I kind of was unmoored in so many ways. And it was, you know, when I came to Columbus and ended up finding literary community here that, I kind of again found this excitement of like being a fan of a lot of the writers here, knowing a lot of people who were doing daring stuff to where eventually when I came back to writing, I came back like full force. And I should also say, I try to say this every time I like talk about it. I owe a lot of this to Ryan. When I moved to Columbus, I didn't know what I was going to do there. I had no idea what was the point, but we met at this event and I told him I was going. He was like, cool. And like he always has like advice every time I see him.
Just
He was like, you
lives off.
should, right. Yeah. You should try to meet the people behind $2 Radio and try to like meet up with or find Hanif Abdurraqib, right? Because this was like right, I think when They Can't Kill Us Till They Kill Us came out, which was a book published by Hanif through $2 Radio. And
Hold
I
on.
just
We
kind of
saw him at Mission Creek in 2014, I think.
okay.
Does that
Okay,
sound like
yeah.
the right timing?
Well, I moved to Columbus at like 2018, so I don't know. I mean, he could have been in Mission. I don't remember. I don't know when he was or wasn't at Mission Creek.
Or 15.
Okay. So he
15?
would have been on, yeah.
Sorry. I'm trying to place because that was a, I don't know, really good weekend for me.
Yeah, man. I mean, he tears up a stage for sure. Um, but yeah, so I Ryan sent me astray. I kind of went there and I like was at this dead end job. I was in a pyramid scheme, frankly,
Oh
and
no.
I didn't realize this at first, but I was. And so I had nothing to lose and I just like kind of badgered. $2 Radio had just opened a bookstore. So I like badgered them until they had a spot for me at the bookstore
That's how
because
I
I
got
had
this
nothing else to
job.
do. Yeah. Yeah, you got to be really stubborn and consistent, right? That's how you get places, you know?
Honestly.
Right?
I just kept showing up and being like, Ryan, you got to let me know if there's an opening. You'll let me know, right? Listen, I
Right.
have a resume.
And I believe that too, because I can imagine it taking some time, but then when he finally admitted he needed help, it was like, oh, well, there's Sarah. Yeah.
Yeah, there I was
Yeah.
constantly. Um, yeah, I have a huge, I don't know which track I want to follow here. First, I want to say like I in all the good ways and in all the literary ways, my life has been so changed uh and impacted and just massively set straight by just knowing Ryan. And
Mhm.
can't say that to his face or, he'll beat me up or something. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that you said it. And then I can be like, yeah, it's not just me. Um,
Right.
and it's not. There's so many
There's
of
so many of us. Right.
But then I have this huge I've never been to Columbus, and if I have been to Columbus, I had pizza and went to bed. I don't know. There was
Hmm.
a city in Ohio that I went to. I had pizza and I went to bed. Um,
Right.
I have the hugest crush on Columbus, and um I'm so delighted that I don't know, someone real is there, meaning someone I know is a real person and not just like watching Ohio.
The event,
Uh,
yeah.
So,
My
yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, so my story with Columbus is funny in a lot of ways. I my family's actually from here, or the American, well, all of my family really, my mom and grandma immigrated to the US and they immigrated to Columbus. And that's where they met my dad, you know. And so I grew up visiting Columbus a lot and I will be honest, like I did not want to go to Columbus, there was nothing wrong with it, but I think when I was really young, I had that teenage urge to just like get out to go somewhere else. And so going to another Midwestern city just didn't feel like big enough, you know? Um, and I hadn't just seen the literary scene that was there in Columbus. And now that I like, as I really like went and I was like, I bet there's something there if I just give it a chance. And man, what a good choice that was. Because you're right. I mean, it really is. I'm glad to see other people outside of Columbus see it because like a lot of Midwestern cities, I think it can fly under the radar, but the level of talent and like excitement around art here is pretty phenomenal, considering there's not a lot of infrastructure to support it. It's all just people kind of making the best out of what they have.
Okay, well, that I did not realize. That's really, I mean, in some ways very sad, but really cool that it's important enough to make it happen.
Hmm.
That's awesome. Um,
Yeah,
I mean, having, I don't know, the perspective of, I don't know, a grown up, I think like right off the bat that Columbus is a different world from the Quad Cities. But I
yeah,
can understand like I don't know. I can understand that impulse that it's not far enough or different enough or whatever.
right. That was very much a teenage kind of thinking, like I wanted to go to Portland or New York or I don't
Mhm.
know, like,
Yeah,
but
I after high school went to Chicago, and while it was definitely different enough, it was too close for me.
mhm,
So I
right.
feel that. And I did go to a coast, and I mean, I stayed there for a long time, and it was great for a while, but it's not me.
No. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so how did you, I guess just by hanging out and doing the thing, which is really the advice I would give to anyone about how to get involved in any kind of scene. Um, and then I know $2 Radio does lots of events, and they have, you know, food and stuff. So obviously you're sort of you get a little bit of an in into how those things work if you're in that setting. But you have your own series now.
Yeah, I got to, you're right, like through $2 Radio. The series that I host is still taking place at $2 Radio. And it was largely inspired by them too. I think that what inspired me the most about $2 Radio, what kind of inspired the way you can let me know if I'm going too far off topic here or if I like missed the
I don't
question,
really
but
think that that's a thing.
yeah, yeah.
Everything is
Um,
everything.
right, right. I $2 Radio, to give a little bit of their background, like started by Eric and Eliza Obanoff when they like were fresh out of college and like um Eric like will often say it was something that they started this indie press because they were too young to know it was a bad idea, and I think they really made it happen, and they're like one of the coolest indie presses I think out there, and their ability to just do something and not worry about like gatekeepers was really inspiring, and so I got to assist in their programming. I got to, like you said, like meet a lot of people when they were coming in. And then when I came back to manage the store, I got to like get a lot more directly involved with that. And I know a lot of artists around here, and I know sort of the history, people like to kind of try to keep the history alive in their own way. And so Columbus is, like, is a good kind of grassroots scene, right? And so a lot of people will talk about this like glory day, I think in the like 90s or whatever, when there was an open mic, a weekly open mic every day of the week. So no matter where you wanted to go, any night you could like do something, and that has since changed just because there's a natural kind of ebb and flow, really. And I knew that I wanted to, kind of help fix that, right? And so I started a monthly open mic because I'm older and that's like what I have energy for instead of a weekly one.
Weekly is a
But
lot.
weekly is too much, man. A monthly is enough for me, really. Because and it's not the only thing I do. What I actually started was I started Village Poetry just as a workshop first, right? That's what I had room for. But again, like the sort of instead of worrying about like having to go to a class where you have to pay or an MFA program where you have to like rely on some sort of gatekeeper to have a workshop. I'm sure they're out there, but I just didn't see that many workshops that were accessible, just like for somebody who was new to poetry, who didn't have like a built-in community of writers that they worked with yet. I wanted there to be a way for people to access that, especially because like frankly, I wanted it, like I was,
I think that's honestly how most things get done. Like
yeah,
everybody, you find out everybody wants it once you do it,
yeah.
but somebody has to make it happen.
It was cool. It was really like that. I thought, well, I might as well give this a shot because I want to do it anyway. And I wasn't sure if anybody would sign up because they don't always, right? Like you can try something and get nobody, and that's just the risk you take. But I was really grateful that like we've been going a few years strong now. And there's so many like people who never really, I think, shared poetry outside of maybe a few friends before going to that. And now some of them have been published. There's poets who I don't know if they would have met each other if it wasn't through this workshop. So it does feel like it's sort of a passive role I get to play, but it's one that I'm very proud of still. Like it's that I think is one of the things I get most excited about in art is just like besides my own work, is just bringing people together.
This is this is gonna make sense, I promise.
Okay.
Do you follow sports at all?
Not
I
that much,
don't,
but
but
let's see. I
players.
might be, yeah.
I don't.
I might be able to follow.
Um, Probably the term is enough, but I feel like it's like a coach tree, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Like the he I coached this player who went to this team who coached here who, right?
Right.
Um, and so I feel like what you're describing is the same. Um, I learned the term from someone who follows sports, obviously. Uh,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
where like you can see how you say your students or
Yeah.
your participants then like connect and go over here and do their work over
Yeah.
here, and it all came from the same.
That's true. And I am, only and I have people on both sides of that equation, right? Like, I've already mentioned a few of them. I haven't mentioned Scott Woods, who is, I think, is the legend here and a legend to people who are kind of following the right path. But Scott has taught us all a lot, and Neef has taught me a lot. The guys at $2 Radio have taught me a lot. You have, and so, you and Ryan. And so I think that knowledge that like I wouldn't be here um, without all these other people. There's
Yeah.
just like no other choice. Like you got to keep it going somehow. And I've already seen some people who like started, who came to the workshop, who are like hosting their own events, who are doing their own things around town. And so it does feel like the web just keeps growing.
I love it so much. I just
Yeah,
remembered for some reason I didn't remember. I was thinking about like the interns. But I just remembered one of my because we have a workshop group that meets twice a month.
yeah,
Um, and I started hosting it online in 2020 because obviously,
mm,
I hadn't hosted it before that, and my role got to grow a lot in 2020 because I wasn't living in the Quad Cities at the time. Uh,
right.
anyway, and one of my participants started his own in person in his town. He's in I think Macomb.
Oh, cool.
And so on the opposite weeks, he runs a group. It's
That's
just
awesome.
the coolest thing in the world,
There's a workshop in Macomb now. I would have never guessed,
right?
Yeah,
Ugh, it's the best.
that is
Um,
good.
but the you said something that really, really hit that I feel like I've been trying to put words to for a long time, which is that like the knowledge that you or one wouldn't be here without, those who came before, is important to, at least it sounds to me like it's important to the work being done now.
Mhm.
And I think that that sort of makes that, I don't know, tree analogy into, I guess, a web, like you were saying, into a circle where it's like, I couldn't have done it without this, and you wouldn't be where you are with, like, you maybe you'd still be doing great things, but I did have, a ripple in the, let's just switch
Yeah,
metaphors.
absolutely did. Yeah. I forget what the program was, but I remember it well. It was like, it wasn't the youth internship thing because I didn't participate
Yeah,
in the
you were at
magazine.
Quad City Arts, right? Or
Yeah,
Metro Arts.
yeah,
I don't think Metro Arts exists anymore. It's just Quad City Arts.
yeah. And it was just like a summer writing program. I don't remember much other than we wrote a lot. I remember you and Ryan, and that I think Ryan introduced me to like Kenneth Cook or Frank O'Hara, maybe, like
Both of those sound right.
yeah, yeah.
That's a crazy thing too. I feel like I'm just like really going straying from my purpose here, but maybe not.
Let's do it.
Uh,
Yeah.
the the way that like the reading that's introduced to us changes the way that we read, or like the way that we move through literature, and then the way that we write is really crazy to me, because I feel like I wouldn't, I mean, there's lots of wonderful things that I found on my own. Um, but it's like somebody like put something in the path, changed the path. Um, so I'll turn this into a question. Who are the surprise impactful writers or thinkers that were placed in front of you, as opposed to ones that
Um,
you found on your own?
yeah, man, that is a good question.
I know that
I
was
feel
like
like
a
I'll
really hard
probably
one I came up with just then. I can babble for a little if you want to think.
what I'll probably do is like I'll think of some later and just drop them in. But I think that, both like Kenneth Cook and Frank O'Hara that I know Ryan for sure showed me are great examples because I I I don't know when I would have found them, but it really kind of opened up this idea of like I think a lot of the people I was into, like I was really into Allen Ginsberg at the time, right?
Hmm.
And so there's a certain level of persona that seems a little more put on and stronger in Ginsberg's work, and the idea of
Where the New York School people have just no facade,
no facade, yeah.
or at
So
least they are structured such that they don't.
exactly, the facade is no facade, perhaps, but like the message is still the same that like sometimes when you can say the simple thing simply, you should, right? That I think has had a really profound influence on me, and it's like a high I'm always chasing. And I think all of the performance poets, I don't remember who showed me first, like Saul Williams or Andrea Gibson, but like I never, I came to writing as like a very bookish and shy kid, right? Like writing was almost like a refuge and like reading from other people
No,
like
same.
from the world at large, right? And so that sort of communal aspect did take me a while to get to. And, you know, great performance poets both for a long time seemed really inspiring but inaccessible. Like that's not going to be my thing. And then as I worked, I was like, well, is it inaccessible? Like maybe should I be doing a little, should I lean into this a little bit more?
And that's a huge, huge thing I think for like that community can do, is just make everything seem more accessible, because you actually know a guy doing it, you know?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was a big thing like for me. And I really think that's like something I was trying to say earlier. That's what Columbus did for me is that, I've met people here who are legends, I think, and people who should be legends if they are not perceived as such. And the fact that they are just people that I like see around town or like, like talk about music with or do karaoke with is just like
No.
I really, I think for a long time, like when I wasn't writing for years and I was like, life is hard enough. Like, how can I fit writing into it? And just like meeting people who not only did it, but like seemed, yeah, just like normal people and like not,
Yeah.
I thought it would have made me unhinged to like dedicate myself to writing. And I was like, nope, it's actually,
It was important. It made
it's
everything all
important.
better.
It did. Yeah. It's can be hard to write sometimes, but it's harder not to
I
is
have
the way I
a
look at it now.
I have a like a little comic on my wall that says that basically.
Yeah.
Like it's a chicken at a computer and it says no, it's a chicken at an easel and it says like they tell you how hard it is to live as an artist and then the second frame is the chicken at a computer, but they never tell you how hard it is to not be an artist. Something like that.
It's a
Because I think
relatable
that's so
chicken for sure.
important. And that
Yeah.
was also something for me that I had to do too, where it was like, I mean, I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't just jump into the deep end. It seems like I should have, but I didn't. And so when I, intentionally restructured my life around art, I
Yeah.
needed to keep that in mind.
Yeah. I think that like I, growing up with like one immigrant parent who did support me like caring about arts, but also, quite frankly, at one time was like, well, that's not like what
Pragmatism
you're
is
gonna do,
important.
right? Pragmatism is important. And also like on both sides, they grew
Oh,
up
I didn't mean it.
much
I'm
different lives than
sorry.
I
I
did,
don't
right?
know that I think that pragmatism is important. I'm just also from an immigrant family.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Sorry.
I don't know if it is. I think it's helped me in some ways. That's a good debate. Is it important or not? But like that's certainly
I
like
don't have an
the message
answer.
I grew up
I'm
with,
not
right?
committed to any take on that. Not committed.
Right. Right. And yeah, but I just that took me a long time to realize like, yeah, I mean I'll be pragmatic. I'm still gonna pay my bills, right? Like I'm not gonna like I know I don't have as many easy paths as some people do, but like that doesn't matter. Like I think like for a long time I think this came with wanting it so bad from such a young age too. Like when I had unrealistic or ungrounded takes of what an artistic life looked like. Like I said, I was 12 years old and I was reading like John Keats and they would like have his letters, right? And so I was like, oh, if you're a really good writer, people will like read your letters in
Yeah.
journals. And like so there I like put this weird pressure on myself as a child. And then I realized like that's just such the wrong way to look at it. The important thing is that like I'm doing this because I need to, because I much everything else aside, no matter how else life is going, I got to do this.
I just stop talking while I have a pen in my mouth. Um, so I think that's a good, damn it. I wanted to write down something you said.
Oh
Well,
shoot.
I think that's a good segue into I don't know if I guess you know this, but I feel like something we have in common is that a lot of our writing surrounds whatever identity is or isn't or could be or should be or is
Mhm.
placed upon us.
Yeah.
I assume that that just happened because it's something that preoccupies you, but can you tell me a bit about your writing or why you think identity writing matters?
Yeah, I do. I'd say that it's both seems like very obvious, but I don't think always was. I think when I was a younger writer, I was kind of trying to avoid it. And this will be a long-winded way to get there. So apologies to anyone listening. But
And we have you here on purpose because we want to hear you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't used to write as much about identity. I was had certain biases against it even maybe and the truth is I think I was just scared of it, right? I wasn't a very confessional or like personal writer when I was younger, because I didn't know it just feels very difficult. But what basically happened is like when my mom passed, I didn't realize this, but I stopped, I knew I stopped writing and it probably had to do with grief, but what I realized when I started writing again is that I stopped writing because I wasn't letting myself write about her,
Mm.
and I had to, you know. So if I
I've
wasn't
had that. I've had that.
right, so if I wasn't willing to write about her, I didn't have it in me to really talk about anything anymore. So it was a big like awakening for me in the last 10 years or whatever to realize that like I can't just write the way I used to, at least not now. I think, I would like to marry the two different schools eventually, but like I was just writing things that caught my ear, like turns of phrases that I found interesting or whatever, right? But I do have a lot of stuff that I just need to sort out for myself. Like I am often writing in ways that I hope will reach other people, but I'm truly trying to figure this out for myself still. Like a lot of the writing about identity is because it's not super clear cut for me, like I have one immigrant parent, and one, my dad is American, and my mom came here as a Jewish refugee, but then we also didn't like have a Jewish community. Like she converted to a Christian when she came here. So like I found myself in this like middle ground of a lot of identities a lot. And so I didn't know how to give all these things its due credit. And it took me a while to realize that's actually what makes it interesting. All these things that I thought were blocking me from writing about it are what I should be writing about.
Oh man, that's so hard and so annoying. I feel like
Yeah.
I've gotten to this place where I realize that the thing that like when I have a piece, even if it's like two sentences or an idea or a draft, like doesn't matter.
Mhm.
If I'm like, no, I'm not going to work on that, like I'm now at a point where I'm like, how come?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I hate it. I hate it.
Can't
I'm like,
hide from
but
yourself anymore, huh?
can I just not feel the big feels? Can I just like, I don't know, fake it or something?
You just write
Oh,
about something silly.
that reminds me, I mean to do this like right when things happen. But I forgot. I like to define things and I'm going to do a really bad job of it. When we refer to the New York School, that is a early 20th century set of writers who like I basically said or like Nathan said, the facade is no facade. They
Yeah.
write the everyday, they write really casually and straightforwardly. Um, and they were in New York.
Yeah.
So sorry for the late definition.
There you go. No, that's
Um,
well done. Better than I would have given.
um, so do you give in to that impulse? Or is it still like, because I don't necessarily. I know I rewound back to where we were. I don't necessarily like if I don't want to do it, sometimes I take a break, like maybe it's gonna hurt to work on that particular topic right now.
So I think I have some sort of like um a bunch of different half-baked methods of handling that.
Hmm.
I think that having intention and trying to, like not hide from what it is I'm trying to write about is what's been motivating me for years now. And so I guess overall I'd say yes, I do like push myself to write about the tough things. I should mention actually at some point that I am working on a manuscript about this, right? About basically, it's kind of centered around my mom. It's half about grief as it is about all these identity questions,
Is it
and
poetry
how they
manuscript?
intersect. A poetry, yeah, a collection of poetry. Um, and I've been writing it for years, and I think I'm saying this now on a public channel, so to keep myself accountable that I've been both. I'm getting tired of working on it. I'd rather it just be done. And also, I've been feeling a lot of excitement around the work. So I'm really hoping to get it sort of finished and ready to send out by the end of this year. Um, but the other side of your question is I do have methods for ignoring it. And
That doesn't have to be avoidant, so if
it's kind
necessary.
of avoidant though. I mean,
I mean, I use the word.
yeah, it's a you could argue it's a balance, right? Like I also because the discipline is important, but it's important to remember that writing should be fun. So when the poems are hard, I do have things that are just like obsessions. I've been writing like music essays, or I have like, what's funny is like I have poems that I don't think will be related to this manuscript that I found out later are, I was listening to uh Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me,
Hmm.
the NPR show, and the host was interviewing Nathan Lane, and he was kind of making a joke about and explaining he was a guest that like Nathan Lane is apparently not Jewish, and I was also shocked by this, and I was thinking about how this is like a very common story for a lot of Jews to, you're always like wondering who is and isn't, and you have like guesses, and so that was like a good example of something where I was like, this is just like a poem for fun. And then I realized it actually probably is part of
No.
the manuscript after all. Yeah. Um,
I talked to somebody recently who said that their academic work and their poems were totally unrelated. And I can't remember what the like what their academic work was about, but I was like, how?
mhm. Yeah,
Like, I don't believe you. I'm not saying that you're lying, but I don't believe you because if you spent this much time on this thing, like clearly it's in your head.
exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. That's hard for me to imagine. I mean, maybe they're like looking at different sides. Because to me, like a lot of writing, this is language I'm borrowing from Hanif, is writing about your obsessions. I feel like sometimes
Yeah.
I'm writing about things because I talk about them at length to the people who will listen to me. And like when I repeat a story so many times, I'm like, maybe this should be a poem instead of me just like badgering people about this. And so,
I mean,
um,
I don't know if there's any way around it. Like if something's in your head enough, it comes out.
yeah, exactly. I do one of the other fun things that I do when I'm trying to avoid that kind of work is, we were talking earlier about poetic community. Like one of my best like poetry friends is somebody who I'm pretty sure he went to Augie and was around for a while. Neil Shipley. Did you never meet Neil? Neil's great. Neil and I were in
I
college together.
disappeared for like 15 years
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
to the
I
coast.
think Ryan knows him, which is why I assumed you might have, but that makes sense. Neil Neil and I met in college, and we were like kind of each other's first readers for a long time. We were different writers. We approached it very differently and had different concerns. And I think that, but we still got each other's work really
Hmm.
well, and so that made that relationship good. I knew that he wasn't just like my target audience who was gonna eat up everything I say. That he kind
Yeah.
of I assumed he liked it on its merits if he liked something. Um, And so besides that relationship, Neil and we both kind of like stopped writing for a while and found it at the same time, and we reached out. And so we've been not only reading each other's works, but we picked up this project we had in college, which is we've been co-writing poems. And
I love this.
I love it so much. And it is a great distraction, right? Because it's such a different process. I think when I'm writing on these things that these important identity issues, I really have to like nail how I want to say. Neil and I are like when we write together, we what we do is we give each other permission to like, somebody sends a poem, the other person reads it, and we give each other permission to basically like workshop it, but keep all the notes you want, right? Like so if you would workshop a piece and you would say, cut this line, you cut it. And if you want to add something, add it. And so it's such a great way to like let the poem lead you instead of letting you lead the poem. Um,
Yeah, that's fantastic. And also a reminder I really needed, not about that. I've never really collaboratively written things.
yeah.
But that like when you do get really deep into these trenches, uh having having that like totally different way of doing writing can be really helpful. And that's something like I used to take and I'm in school, so That's why maybe I'm not taking so many classes right now, but I used to take classes and just um for a long time, this is relevant.
Hmm.
For a long time I would say that I don't write poetry. Um, but I would take any class there is and just do it. Just do the class and kind of no stakes, but also like actually doing the thing. And I figure all the skills translate and I'll get something out of it, whatever, whatever. But what was actually working for me was just not having stakes, just following someone's lead.
Yeah, I like that. I like that, and I think, it's a good reminder too that like when you're crafting a poem and you're putting a lot of thought into it or you're working on manuscript or whatever, like you are exercising a certain level of control, but like so much of writing is also receiving, right? You
Yeah.
have to go out there and like live a life and have, in the simplest way put, you just have to have things to write about, right? And so like you
Yeah.
can't just obsess over the page all the time. You have to go outside sometimes.
Um, so you said that your current manuscript is a lot about identity.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm forming something here. You also said that you maybe once had some feelings about I'm just going to say identity writing. I don't feel like that's like a genre or a category that really means a lot, just
Yeah.
to be clear. Um, but can you tell me about how you maybe used to feel about it before you had this, I don't know, mental
Yeah.
transformation?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because I did want to clarify. Like, I never dislike, I mean, I think we mentioned, I
I've had a
mentioned
lot of bad
earlier.
takes. You're good.
Yeah, yeah. I mentioned Andrea Gibson and Saul Williams, who I think both write beautifully about identity in different aspects. And so I always,
And very differently from each other.
and very differently from each other. Yeah, that's very true. They're both so, so good. I, I did this weird thing, which is, I think, a little immature, but true. I mean, I was young, so it makes sense that it was immature, I guess. But I, would see something that like I wasn't good at, and like slightly question it as a
Yeah.
mode, like
I've been
and
there.
right. And I knew that like writing about identity was could be really good, right? Like I did get that. I was never so against it that I had a problem with it, but I just still at a certain level didn't get it because I didn't get it personally because I was too sort of like I didn't know how to be that vulnerable, maybe,
That's
you
also
know?
like if I don't know how to read something,
Yeah.
that's a thing.
Yeah.
And
And
maybe it's a topic that I don't know how to read, even though it feels like it's a form or whatever.
I think that's true, but I think I did really enjoy reading it. I think I just um
It's okay if it was just about you.
yeah, I think it really was. I think I just didn't know how to be that vulnerable. And so instead of admitting that that's what it was, I tried to like make it look like this positive attribute that I had where I cared about other things. I cared about sort of like what I thought of as a more pure art, which, kind of frankly is bullshit, right? But like, yeah, that was that was how I felt until I was really like forced to admit that I needed also, like we all do need to kind of reckon with who we are, whether it's on the page or off the page. I think it was like even less about poetry. I just wasn't reckoning with that, and doing it on the page is how I knew how to do it. So,
Yeah, that's really beautiful, though. I know, like, probably the eloquence just came today, but um, but I think that's a really common experience anyway, and I wouldn't have had the words for it, but like,
mm.
as I was sort of interjecting, um, that maybe I didn't know how to read it, or um, maybe it was just about me and not about the work or whatever. That so much, at least for me, um, of my issues with any type of art or creating of it is really like, am I hiding something from myself?
Yeah, yeah.
What's
Oh
the
man, was
psyche
I?
doing today?
Yeah. That is that I'm going to remember that. Thank you, because that is, I think, has been my concern for years now. And that's really this difference that I've been trying to think of, like before my big years-long writer's block and after it, is that um I think I was really trying to create something. I think going back, like with how obsessed I was with Ginsberg, is this sort of like self-mythologizing, because it's a way of looking at yourself, but way of looking at yourself. It's at its best, it's a way of looking at yourself with care, but not really with accountability, I think,
Oh,
especially when we look at the beat writers, like sometimes, I mean, Ginsberg kind of, I think, saw everybody for how much pain they had and were causing, but still, like like there was a lot of washing over it, And now I feel like I basically just feel like I'm old enough to like look at writing with more responsibility that I just didn't understand.
I think that's, I wrote that down, looking at it with, looking at yourself with care, but not with accountability.
Yeah.
I think that's, I mean, something really wonderful about beatniks is I think that to some extent was intentional, right? It was so
Yeah.
much, I mean, many eras of art are about bucking the institution or the last generation. Um, but also like there's a childishness to that, just
There is, yeah.
period. You
100%.
can't really grow up and also just keep shirking the responsibility and just doing the whims and the words.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Whims and the words. It's gonna be
Wow.
my band name.
Sick.
Um, hmm. So I have often felt, and everybody knows this, like I'm a one trick pony with my work, and however it is that I want to slice it, it's going to be identity. Like I'm not gonna say, um, because there's really two main things that I have worried about, which is silly. Like the fact is that you're making art and that's awesome. Um,
Yeah.
double awesome, someone looked at it.
I know. Yeah. Even better.
But I've been like, oh, the only thing I talk about is not being Armenian enough, or the only thing I talk about is grief. And like, I don't, nobody's gonna be like, I don't know, in the obituary, it's like loving wife, mother, teacher,
Yeah.
uh, dog care for dog mom.
Mhm.
Um, they're not gonna be like, remembered as griever. This woman
Yeah.
was bereaved. Um,
Yeah.
but it's still like something like grief takes up so much of your body and your mind. Like it does become a part of how you see yourself and how you see the world. And so then I think, of course, it's identity writing because this is the lens through which I'm moving.
Right.
Um, there was a question in there.
Well, if you come to it, let me know. But you actually, there's so much I want to follow up with on that. I'm glad you mentioned, because I wanted to ask more about the kind of identity writing you're doing, and it does seem like very cool, like how similar it is. This sort of immigrant experience, and you're like, am I enough of this thing? And that's, I think, another great example of why it was so hard to write about so long, because it was like, well, how.
I
That's a
don't
more
fit
specific
the
example of what was saying earlier. It's like, am I Russian enough? And it's like I had an experience, and so like I'm not gonna. One of the poems I got published recently was called "Not Babushka," and the whole thing was like me trying to talk about my grandmother, who was just like so. She had such a thick accent, like she was an extremely Russian Jewish woman, but me trying to like overdo it and paint her in this super Russian picture doesn't work, because like we
it's
didn't
not how
speak
I know her.
Russian, right? Like that's not, we still lived a fairly American life. Um,
Yeah, diaspora is
so
crazy.
yeah, it really is. And it's very interesting. Like I think about like people over identifying with identities of their ancestors, like that I used to judge, and now I'm like, I mean, how different am I really? Because I'm identifying. And yes, I had like a close connection, but like I didn't speak the language. I don't spend time with Russians. So, like it's all sort of like we're always trying to
We're looking for
reach
a
for
home.
something. Yeah, we're always reaching for some kind of home.
My
And
thinking is, sorry, you keep going.
well, yeah, I forget where I was going with that, but I'll tell you what, I wanted to follow up on your second point too, is which is I love thinking about this idea of thinking about grief as another form of identity writing because to me, what except for like maybe the very big fresh emotions, my mom passed like shit like 15 years ago, so the feelings are there, but they're not as like overwhelming as they were at first. And like but grief is about it's directed at something, you know what I mean? And it's directed at something that you miss and, who are we without our community, right? And so if you are grieving over somebody, you're grieving over a part of yourself, 100%, so that is definitely identity writing.
Man, thank you. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. Um, there are things that so change us as people. And like I said, the lens through which we view the world that like they're just inextricable from us.
Hmm.
But I was thinking the identities, the labels specifically that we hold on to, I don't really take issue with really any kind of labeling that a person may do because I think
Hmm.
all of it is looking for, the jacket that fits. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you're just lying, that's one thing, but
Yeah. Right.
um, so that was that was what I was going to say earlier.
Yeah.
It's hard though, like if you feel like for me, like you're going to be called out for doing it wrong or whatever, which is
Right.
silly. And if somebody were to do that, they would be the jerk, but the fear is
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what kept me, another thing that kept me from writing about my identity for a long time, thinking kind of who am I, especially with the Jewish stuff, right? Because like I said, I know I'm fairly comfortable. I wish that I was taught Russian as a kid, but I still know like how I grew up and the things I grew up. But like, and Jewish identity is very specific in that way that like it can mean so many things to different people, like how many people are still consider themselves Jewish and even have Jewish community, but like have never had a religious community around it, like I think
Mhm.
that's probably more common in like New York when there's big, very like dense kind of populations that all live together. But I was very like shy to write about Jewish identity as someone who never had a bar mitzvah, for instance. And like,
And isn't
um,
that interesting too? Because it just because you write about something doesn't mean anyone's going to see it.
yeah, right.
So
Yeah,
the fear is
exactly.
like just me, but I'm still doing it. I'm still having the fear.
But I'm still having that fear. Yeah. Yeah. It's, and and then I think about what I mentioned earlier, how I was, I had this idea as a tiny, tiny child of like people, fretting over every word that I wrote and like what a weird fear to put on yourself at any age, Maybe it makes more sense now when we are so sort of connected and
We didn't have that then, though.
we didn't have and yeah, that was all on me. I don't know what I was going through back then, but
I don't know. It makes sense if you like come across this writer's journals, you're like, okay, I guess this is what writers do.
I get yeah, that's I better get my journals
We
looking good.
normalize what we see, but it didn't stop you from writing, so that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that's a
I feel like
good part of the story.
I had that to some extent, but it was really just like self-importance.
Yeah. I
There
mean,
wasn't
I think
humility
that's
involved for me.
I think it was self-importance on my stake too. And it's funny like how back and forth between like, you know, I I can only speak for myself, but I feel like there's many times where I was very harsh on myself, which is like a different kind of self-importance, right?
Mm.
To think that what you are going to do is so important that people are going to like tear you down or you're going to do something so offensive, so crazy that people won't forgive you for it is really just like placing yourself on a high pedestal. And so that is something that has taken me a long time to like I still have to remind myself like all the time, be like, no one's paying that much attention, man. Like you have a
Nobody
community that
cares,
cares about
David.
you. You have a community that cares about you. Like but they will approach you with kindness. So like, don't just relax.
No, that's so good.
Yeah.
I don't think about that at all.
Yeah.
But you're right. And that's fun. I'm gonna like turn to Buddhism now.
Yeah.
The connection
Which
made
is
sense,
another
I
very Jewish thing to do, turning to Buddhism. Yeah.
think. Oh, I'm gonna keep that one in my pocket. Uh okay, so I don't know if this is like a proper term or if this is a term that a lot of people know. Um I was really tempted to make a joke. Um but it sounds like you're approaching this manuscript as like a project book, like you've got your idea in mind and you're writing to it.
Right. Yeah.
How's that work? I'm a very I'm gonna write what comes and hope it makes sense later type of guy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good kind of guy to be. I don't know. I mean, it's there's back and forth, right? Like I have to, I mentioned a poem earlier that I didn't think would go in the manuscript that probably will. I what I'll do is like I'll write a few poems and I notice that there's a common thread between them, and I see something that I mention as like just a little line in one poem where I'm like, what, that actually needs a whole extra poem. Like it's so, and then I
I've
get a
never had
little
that moment, but when people talk about it, I'm like, you must be so cool.
I just write really long, I mean, it's funny that you say that because that's feels fairly common in my workshop is like how often we're like, I see what you're doing here, but this really should be at least five separate poems. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
No, I can see it in other people's, but
yeah. Oh, but you don't, I see. Yeah. Um,
but I'm mostly my lines go all the way across the page.
oh, really?
Yeah, I'm saying I mostly do prose, but
Yeah, I see. Oh, I thought you just meant that you were like, a beat poet, that you
really
just like wrote super
avant-garde.
long lines. Yeah. Um, so yeah, I think I just I try to like not over determine it, but I do know some big points, because it is sort of an accounting of big ideas. So I can like look at I can basically have a uh an outline that is very movable, right? Because I'm not writing a novel, or you know what I mean? And so like if I don't have to worry about like messing up the plot if I make too many additions to it. I know what the overall things are that I'm trying to say, and I can let the poems lead me as I keep writing them.
So I assume it's totally fine if I'm wrong, but I assume that you wrote a bunch of poems to the same theme and then you were like, "Hey, maybe I have a book here." And now you're continuing that impulse?
That's a good guess, and that might seem a little more sensible than I feel like the real answer sounds a little more self-important maybe, but like I wrote the first poem. The first poem was like multiple pages, and I finally gave myself permission to write about my mom, and I was like, the reason that I was struggling to do this is clearly just because it's more than one poem, And so it was really just that idea that I like wrote this long, big, sprawling one, and that I knew I had more to say. And now it was just kind of like, fuck it, let's see if we can make a book. I bet.
I
And it
don't
was just
think
a guess. It was just a guess that I had enough to make a book, and I'm pretty sure that was true. I'm
I
still
don't think
working on
that's
it.
weird at all.
Yeah.
And I phrased it that way. I don't know why I phrased it that way. The question was how did it happen, you know? Um,
Yeah. That's
but also nope, don't remember.
yeah. Yeah, dang, me neither.
Oh, I do remember. There we have to as artists, we have to think we have to be a little self-important if we want anyone to
Of
see our
course.
work.
Yeah,
And it's
right.
fine. That's fine. It's fine
Yeah.
to want to be acknowledged. It's fine to want people to see your work, and it's fine not to, but it doesn't make you
Yeah.
like a megalomaniac.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in feeling shame about wanting to be read.
That
So
that
we
comes
will
back
not
to I
play that.
think what that comes back to what I was saying earlier, actually, and I have to just always remind myself this, like being too hard on yourself is a different kind of self-importance, Like I have something
It's so
that
good.
I need to say that I think might be interesting to other people. And that's all I can really hope for.
And
Yeah.
in my other life, I have another job or career or something,
Hmm.
in which I train people to be storytellers as a form of activism.
Hmm.
Um, and the the thing about living in the world is we all have a story just by virtue of being here and experiencing things. You know, we live in a
Right.
world in which the body is a political object. Uh,
Right.
and so it's also not like you or me having space takes space away from anyone else. We're all
Exactly.
already here.
Yeah. 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 That's really that was something I had to overcome too. You know, I was really much looking at like so many more important stories than me. And I realized like I'm not trying to necessarily save the world with my stories, with my poems. You know, I'm just kind of trying to write poems. I have recently, as I've dared myself to like write about things that are challenging for me, I have started writing political poems, but I don't normally think of like poetry as activism, you know, largely because and it can be, but I think just for me, it is, I like separating them because I would want,
Well, I think it's really
right,
kind of a this is going to be a hot take probably. I maybe don't mean this as a universal, though it's going to sound that way. I think it can be dangerous to be like, I'm going to write a political poem. I'm going to activate the people and
right,
whatever. Like the fact of living in the world is what has created this story or this uh expression, and its impact is its impact.
yeah. I think I just like it's I worry, and again, this is very like more about me and you know whoever else I guess can relate to this. I My problem with like looking at poetry as like a political action is that there are more direct, robust things we can do, and it can be really easy. I mean, like who hasn't like if you're a writer, if you're watching this and you're a writer, who hasn't like thought about something they wanted to write, got all that dopamine from thinking about it, and then not written shit, right? You know, like it can be really easy to do something that like makes you feel good about doing an action and then not take it further. And so poetry can certainly be political and be politically important, right? It can give people a chance to be heard. It can help them understand something in a way they didn't before, but it does just feel like such a high pressure to put
Yeah.
on myself that I think it would kind of slow me down in ways that are not beneficial. You know, like I'll write the political poems when they come and I'll try to, you know, interact with the world in more urgent ways when I can, I guess.
Yeah. If it comes, it
Yeah.
comes. Great.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. My feelings are not fully formed on this, but
Yeah.
I think I think art can be everything. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not ready to be controversial anymore.
Fair. Fair.
Um, oh no, I forgot to watch the time at all. Uh, so I hope we're okay. Um, when thinking about coming back to writing, was there what happened? What brought you back?
Um, COVID. You know, I mean, like plain and simple, I think that like there was some background work that maybe had me ready. You know, I think living in a vibrant artistic community helped, right? I was seeing a lot of writers. Um, I remember one very specific thing. I always like to give her credit for this because I'm sure someone said this to me just as sort of like a small talk, like throw off statement, but it meant a lot to me in retrospect, you know. Barbara Fant, who is a poet that used to live in Columbus, would ask me how my writing was going whenever she would stop into the bookstore into $2 radio. And I never had a good answer because it wasn't going well, you know. And so one time she was like, well, you know, sometimes it's like the not writing is part of writing too. And in my head, I was like, that
Yeah.
sounds like a good excuse for someone who's not writing, right? But Barb was very smart, and so I like would give her the benefit of the doubt.
I love
And
that she smelled writer on you too. I love
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. I would talk about it, I would tell people, but I was kind of sh a little shy. And so like I had this background, like I had like all the support, and then COVID just like let me slow down and I think for some reason, I don't remember why, but I just finally gave myself permission. Like I kind of realized I was like, I didn't know how important it was going to be to me, but I was like, it doesn't. The other thing about grief is like you care so much about what you're writing about that for me it was very hard to approach it, right? Like I didn't another reason I didn't want to write about my mom is because like I wanted it to be good, and I couldn't imagine,
Oh shit, that's a good point. Yup.
right? Like I couldn't imagine saying everything that I needed to say or saying anything that felt like it was enough. And so I just didn't want to do it. And I think so having the time to slow down and be like, just try, just give it a shot. If it's bad, throw it away. Um,
I think
that
that's
really helped.
so healthy too. Just like if it's bad, it's bad. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. There's a guy here, Darren Demery, who's a great poet, and he like I think is genuinely on his like 25th collection. And he's a very
Holy
good
cow.
poet. But I don't know. I really don't get it. But he's also just like insanely prolific. And he was at this reading the other night. He was at Rhapsody and Refrain, which I also got to be a part of. It's a really special reading here in Columbus. Um, and he was talking about how like that's what it is for him. I mean, so he's done 25 collections and written so many more that we'll never see. Like I think, and that is so valuable to just sort of give yourself permission to do it. Just go for it.
I need that. I don't
Yeah.
I don't I can say it all day and I know it's true, but I work myself up.
I'm still working on it too. Yeah, I don't know. It's great advice though, if you can only convince yourself to do it.
This is gonna seem, yeah, no, that's real. You just have to have somebody like a friend next to you with a little rolled up newspaper.
Right.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I really did you watch Schitt's Creek?
I did. Yeah.
I really think that so many things in life are just Alexis telling David about his driving test. Just nobody cares.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it
Man, that's a
sounds
good
mean,
show.
but it's actually like very good, helpful advice.
Isn't it? Yeah, I think no one, it's so funny how like so many big lessons we learn can be either depressing or like liberating, depending on if you're willing to accept it.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Nobody,
good.
it's like that meme with like the two people on the bus, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? And they're on the
yeah.
bound, right? It's like nobody cares, but nobody cares.
You've got like so many one-liners that are just so good. This is gonna seem like a weird segue, but it will make sense soon.
Okay.
Tell me about your it'll make sense to you about your preoccupation question mark with liminal spaces.
Oh, yes. You know,
Yes, I've heard of those.
I've heard of a liminal space. I think that liminal space was again,
Oh my God, wait, I have a
oh,
connection. I could have
okay.
done this so beautifully.
Do you want to go for it?
I feel like that place where we have both identified being with our identities is liminal in its awkward in-betweenness.
It's so funny you say the word liminal, Sarah. Um, I I think like the word itself actually has done a lot of work for me because again, just a really geeky kid, and so I heard about liminal at a young age, and it just opened me up. I was like, maybe just because it's so pretty, but and,
It is
and
a
it made
pretty word.
like the idea you could say like I feel in between or I feel lost, but it's just like an elevated version of being lost or in between. And
I'm glad you said that because
having
I feel like a lot of people are probably getting the word from those memes of like parking garages,
right, right.
and that doesn't give you a clear idea.
No, that's been a weird one because I enjoy a lot of those videos, but I don't. I do think it's like raising kids to not know the fullness of liminality.
Yeah.
And yeah, liminality I think shows something that like we could see as a weakness as like a strength, it is a positive attribute. It's not like a falling apart. And I think that having that phrase has helped me realize that like um being in between stuff can give you a unique perspective. It can help you see things more clearly.
Hmm.
So liminality has been absolutely pivotal to just the way I try to like think about the world and also, but yeah, very, very influential when writing all these kind of identity pieces.
Also, I think, yeah, something, because now I'm thinking about identity as a existing with one's identity in a liminal space where, you know, the needle is not right on any particular item
Yeah.
on the identity wheel. Uh,
Yeah.
um, that might be like very, very, sorry, there's noise over there. That might be very, very helpful for me as a lens. Um, yeah, are you working with it in your writing? How are you working with it in your writing? The concepts, the word.
I haven't, I mean, I don't, I'll have to sneak the word in a little bit.
I mean, you don't
I'd say
have to.
I'd say that, well, maybe I should though. I'd say that liminality probably just like really shows up most in my like writing when it comes to sort of these classic, like immigrant identity, like Jewish identity, about where instead of feeling ashamed that like I don't know how to speak Russian, I realize that I can connect to this identity in more specific details. I think that I don't know. I guess
I'm seeing grief in there too.
yeah.
Not that you asked.
No, tell
But
me.
but for me, especially when I'm actively in that horror, um, I'm not quite anywhere, right? Like I'm trying to move through my day. I physically am existing in this place, but
Yeah.
everything in me is somewhere else.
I'm actually glad you said that. Thank you. Because I mean, I think the liminality when it comes to identity, like, it kind of makes sense. I think I could go back to that poem I mentioned about like my grandmother and about how like she's a big part of my Russian identity, but also, we spoke in English, right? Like all these kind of things. But yeah, the grief, liminality and grief really is a good point. I mean, I feel like I just was not there for years, you know what I mean? And like the weird way that like thinking about liminality when it comes to like grief and just presence has been something that frankly I've been very interested in, like about how um
As a presence. That's gonna mess me up.
or affecting the way that you are present in the world, like
Oh,
there
no, no,
was
no. I think that it's that's a real thing. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and it was like 5, 10 years where I was like, I don't even know how to account for that time. Like I remember it, I could tell you like what I was doing or how I felt, but I just felt like a different person, you know what I mean? Like, and this idea that you can just sort of like fade in and out of your own life
Yeah.
is
Shoot. I was just talking to somebody about this poem and I never looked it up. Um, but there is a poem in which a ghost is a central figure. And
yeah,
I really, really like to think of just with what you said, I haven't thought of this before. Like I am the ghost that's fading in and out.
right. Yeah. Or all these things that you have lost, because it's never just like one person, it's one person and like the space that you shared or like the memories that you had are now strangely as real as they've ever been, but like they do
Totally.
feel like they could just like fade through your fingers at some
Yeah.
times, right? Yeah.
Yeah. This is like I'm gonna have to like journal after this.
Yeah.
Um, okay, I have more writing questions for you, but I'm just guessing that I'm way over time, because I did not
Well,
pay attention. Um, what did I miss? What should I have included? What do you want to say about writing or whatever?
what do I want to say about writing? I mean, we talked about the manuscript. I just kind of like, I know I've given a lot of shout outs to Midwest Writing Center in Columbus, but I think that's like, I wanted to hit that on all notes. I'm coming off of this high of like, um, it's been a great year for me already when it comes to poetry. I was able to do an artist talk um, with my friend Neil Shipley, my co-writer. We got to talk about that to some high schoolers. There's this reading
That's
I
cool.
mentioned. It was very cool. It was very cool. There was this reading that I briefly mentioned in Columbus that just wrapped up yesterday, that I should mention, and it's run by Scott Woods at the Streetlight Guild. It's called Rhapsody and Refrain, and he hosts 30 Columbus poets in 15 days. It's 15
Ooh,
days straight. And you've
oh, that
done
is a
some organizing.
lot.
I've done some organizing. I can't imagine. This year I actually went to every one of them, which is for the first time, but
That's so much.
it's a lot. I
That's like
got to
beyond ambitious. That's
it's so ambitious and it's so effective. It seems like a sort of specific little idea, but it tells you so much. Like it shows to you the city that I said has gone through kind of ebbs and flows of how powerful the writing is. It shows that like at any given moment, he can choose 30 poets that deserve a feature. And he has to pick, I mean, there's more, it changes from year to year. And and that people will show up for poetry for 15 days straight, right? Um, and also, like you get to know these people that show up. There's people that I know through the poetry community, but then I see them every day, and it kind of like builds a special relationship. So that was so fun. This was my second year reading in that, and like having that kind of love and respect from the community has like done so much for me as a writer. So um, yeah, I just like coming from the Midwest Writing Center, coming to this like robust scene in Columbus. I'm just so grateful, man. I mean, I don't. I think I would always love writing in some capacity, but I had a lot of insecurities when I was younger. And so I think without all of this love and support, I don't know what I'd be doing. I don't think I would have given it this much of a shot. So, yeah.
I love hearing that. Hi, sweetie. I have a puppy here, friends.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, she will not be visible because she's
Yeah.
shorter than the table. But um, I just really don't think that that can be oversaid or overemphasized. That like just uh, having some encouragement, having some friends, having someone around doing something in the
Yeah.
arts is it'll make or break, I guess, is what I think.
Yeah. It's good to know you're not alone.
Well, thank you for hanging out with me today. I'm super please well, this isn't really for you. I'm just gonna like tell the ether. We're gonna let you know when Nathan's around. We'll get him reading with us. It'll be awesome. But if you're in Columbus, you know where to look for oh shoot, I forgot the name of your open mic.
Village Poetry, open
Village
mic.
Poetry. Yeah.
Yes.
Um so if you're in Columbus, look up Village Poetry, probably all the other stuff that he named. I took very few notes, unfortunately. Um so hopefully you were taking notes while you were watching. Um Now, we're gonna leave you with a prompt. Do you want to do it? You want me to do it?
Yeah, I can do it. So I would like to invite everybody to really sit with that concept of liminality in their own lives and try to write. I know that sometimes having extra guidelines can help, but I don't want to put any blinders on this. Just like write whatever you can about liminality. I think that, liminality and identity is so important, as I've been talking a lot about like realizing that ways in which you don't think you fit into your own identity can actually be very interesting points to show um, how nuanced these things can be. Write about the liminality of like big ideas in your life, like is there a sense in which joy in your life can also become pain, where it can be kind of hard to tell the difference. Liminality, I should have explained this earlier, comes from a Latin word for like the threshold. So like it just quite literally means like being in between, like what is any sense of being in between that might seem complex to you that you'd like to explore further in writing?
I think that's first, I didn't know that threshold bit. I feel like I should have. Um, I think that's fantastic, and I guess I'm probably gonna do it.
Awesome.
Um,
Yeah. You should let me know.
yeah, set yourself 5, 10 minutes on a timer, whatever it is you can afford. Maybe don't set a timer. Maybe you can have some good time writing. Thank you so much for hanging out, Nathan. Thanks for being part of our community. And friends out there, please write more light into your life.